Welcome to our author interview series for Handbook for Human Potential, an accessible guide to personal growth with 18 contributing authors. My name is Chandra Zas, and I am the book mama, compiler, editor, as well as the hostess of this show. This author interview series is designed to help you get to know the authors better and go beyond the chapter. If you would like direct links to these shows, both to the live recordings as well as the edited recordings, please go to our book's website, handbookforhumanpotential.com, and sign up for our book's newsletter. Without any further ado, here is our interview for today. Thank you for being here. I'm so grateful that you're interviewing me. So grateful and honored. So I wanted to do a small introduction from Britta. She and I went to coach training together, and I fell in love with her from the moment I heard her laugh, and I think she's an amazing human. And I'm very grateful that we became friends, largely because of coach training. I was like, hey, can we be buddies? And then she decided to take my offer to come out to Burning Man with us, which was like one of the funnest weeks ever. And you guys saw some of the pictures on social media of us at Burning Man together. So Britta has her own business. She does stay or go coaching. She coaches women on deciding to stay or go, and she's a powerhouse. So if you're into her energy and you're at that crossroad, then definitely check out Britta.
Are you going to hand it over to me now and let me dive in with you?
Yes, please.
Yay. So today what we're going to be doing is I get to interview Chandra. Chandra is, as those of you that have read her chapter know, I loved you calling me a powerhouse because that is the same way I feel about you. So I'm very excited to get to kind of take the other listeners behind the scenes to get to know you more personally. I know in reading our book, I too have thought, oh, I want to spend more time with the authors, like getting to know them, not just like their gift to the world, but like the journey that brought them to this process. So with that in mind, we're going to be talking about all kinds of things through our interview today. Some of the things we're going to talk about are coming home to your body, which I know you're really like, that is your jam. You do it, you teach it so beautifully. Rebuilding trust with our bodies after disconnection, how to see our emotions as messengers instead of problems. This is all. I was so excited when you asked me to be the one to interview because I was like, this is the heart and soul of so many pieces of what we learned in coach training that you've expanded on and just really made big and beautiful and connected in the ways that only you can. So with that in mind, I would love to go to the very beginning and really ask you, what do you think it was that finally made your body loud enough that you couldn't ignore it anymore?
Yeah, it's a really good question, especially like in the scope of thinking about like most of the people that come to me, they're feeling really healthy. And then all of a sudden they're like lost their health or something's like they're in like some kind of a health crisis. And I would say my story is actually kind of reversed from that because I actually had really struggled for my health from very young. And so I kind of got normalized in feeling bloated and having chronic headaches and having eczema and asthma. And I grew up as a small kid, like that was kind of my normal. And so one of the things I talk about in my program is like to feel the difference. And so for me, when my body actually spoke, like when I was like the first huge aha that I had was when my friend dared me to be vegan she was like an animal rights person. She's like, I bet you can't go 2 weeks without animal foods. And I lived in a small town. There was no vegan foods around. So it just meant that I ate like really clean, like fruits and vegetables, basically.
Yeah.
And day 10, I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? I don't feel bloated. I don't have a headache. I remember looking at my bedroom window and feeling like I saw colors like pop. And I was like, whatever this is, I want more of this. So I actually had the experience of like the relief of symptoms. And that was at age 15, where I was like, okay, like there is something here for me to like deeply look into and figure out how can I like feel better. So for me, it was actually like, it was the reverse of what most people.
I love that you talk about that in your second chapter, in chapter 10. That's where you kind of detail more of the food mood connection there. And I just find it super inspiring that at 15, that was like, it's like a spiritual experience for you of there is a reality beyond the reality like I'm currently experiencing. And I can access that through food.
Yeah, and I can feel really different. My body and my brain can feel really different. It was enormous for me. It was definitely one of the most important moments of my life.
Yeah. And I really appreciated like one of the things I love most in so first off, I love that you are the author in the book that has 2 chapters because you are the book mama. And both of those chapters, chapter 10 is amazing for a lot of the food mood, the heart of what your work is in your practice, right? In your business. And then chapter 0 is this beautiful foundational, like just everybody that reads this book, everybody that falls in love with any of these other chapters, that's like an entry point.
Do you know the story of how this chapter came about?
Tell me more. No.
It's actually, and I'm so grateful that you brought this up because I wanted to talk about it. So originally, I just had one chapter, and I printed 5 copies and gave it to 5 people who were very kind and generous to proof it. And 2 people, I actually talk about this in the back of the book. Burton and my partner were like, "I can't read this book." Like they're like, I love you, I can't get past the first chapter." And I was like, and then the other 3 people were like, "This book's amazing. I love this." And I like really sat and looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, was lucky to be at a wedding with Nikia, actually, another author in the book, chapter 1." And she was like, we were kind of like talking through it. And she was like, "Well, it makes sense. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like the body comes first. Like if people don't have their body figured
Mm.
out, and then there's the mental and emotional, and then there's the spiritual needs." And so the 2 guys' feedback and then Nikia's conversation helped me realize, okay, I need to totally restructure the chapters. And then I was looking at all the chapters and I was like, none of these make a soft landing into the book. So I decided to write another chapter. And then I was going to cut my original chapter because I was like, oh, I can't have 2 chapters. And my mom's like, "What are you doing? It's already finished. Leave your..."
Yeah. Do not cut the second chapter. Thank God your mother was like, no, because it is chapter 0 is just the most beautiful entry landing point that brings you in. And I love it. Sounds like that inspired, the different sections that you have the chapters in, right? Like the chapters kind of follow a progression through the book.
Yeah, they were organized very differently before. They were almost, I think, almost every chapter, I think, except for Patricia's chapter, because I just ending on death is just, it was always
So,
from the beginning. Like that had to be the ending. So,
yeah. Yeah.
but all the other ones got moved around.
Do you know off the top of your head, like what that it is kind of like body, spiritual, like what is the sequence?
Yeah, I remember I don't know Maslow's hierarchy of needs really well, but I did look it up when I was deciding the order.
Well,
But
yeah,
I
there it
did
is right
go,
there. It's where you take it through the brain. Yeah, it's like welcome, then functional body care, then your inner tools, then brain changes for healing, and then beyond the daily grind. It is brilliant how you structured that flow. It makes me think of ecstatic dance. Speaking of
right.
going to Burning Man, it is. It takes you through a full, like, beautiful journey through the
Yeah.
process. So we're talking 2 different chapters that I love. I was thinking of chapter 0 because it just kind of lays that groundwork, and then just wanted to mention, like, yeah, chapter 10 is more where we get into this food mood and you share more of that personal journey. And I was so just touched to hear about when you said you were a 2-year-old, like, covered in from head to toe in the itches. And I look at you now as someone who never knew you at that period. It shocked me. Even though I've known about your experiences, hearing that detail of just how unhealthy you were as a child and how difficult that made life.
Yeah, and for me, the other really interesting piece is just how it kind of became so normal, and how I think that's a lot of people get with their health is they just kind of accept. I think it's also kind of like the part of aging, which I hope that Maria maybe talks about, is like this acceptance of aging as just this decline or this disease state, all of these ailments. And I really love thinking that there's so much more freedom in actually choosing that, just because kind of feel like I felt as a kid, this kind of chronic illness, like it doesn't have to be normal. And there are very most often things that we can do to feel way better in our body and our brain.
Yeah. That reminds me of one of the chapters where you talk about like holistic health, seeing yourself as a whole human. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, because I'm thinking of, you've really moved into this space now of holistically viewing yourself, holistically working with yourself. Like you talk about it over and over in both of your chapters. It's like, I kept thinking to myself, like, I want to live like this. I want to live like this, which I have some of the tools, but man, Chandra, you have really like leaned in so deeply to that work. But one of the biggest barriers to that is that we're trained from a young age, like you said, from the opposite end as children, we don't know any better. So you talk specifically at one point about unlearning programming, such as like finish your plate, don't be so sensitive. And you speak about it as early conditioning. I want to know on a personal note, what was the hardest body signal for you to learn to trust again?
Yeah, I want to definitely put up first plug in what I've found to be true for myself and other people that I've helped with this journey is like awareness of it, awareness of the conditioning, awareness of like, oh yeah, I grew up hearing finish your plate or one of, and I'll just go directly into what my dad said. My dad said my maiden name is Graves, and he would say the Graves only poop in the morning. So if I had to poop at dinner, I was like basically like poop shamed, and so I learned to like override that like physical cue, and just like wait until the right time to poop. but
Yeah.
and so, yeah, so that one was one of my hardest ones too. And it's also a lot of where I have come from this. I think I wrote it actually in one of the social media posts this week is even if like there's a small like whisper of a body cue, like for me, relearning how to go poop when my body was, hope no one's offended by poop, but I talk about poop a lot.
Yes, you are so great about just know this now. I've worked with Chandra personally, and poop is a part. If you want to have your body functioning well, it is a part of the process.
Really important. So in the beginning, it was just like, just this little tiny whisper, which is, I really look at this journey of all of us, like whatever kind of cue we're listening to in our body. At first, it's just so quiet, but the more we listen to it and honor it and respond to it, then it starts getting louder and clearer. And so but that was one of the hardest. And the other one was like when I was full. That was another thing that I had just completely learned to override as a kid, which probably also had to do with my medications. I think there was a period where it was really hard for me to feel the feeling of full and sometimes even hungry. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
what those, like I was very disconnected from those very basic, very important body cues. Probably the poop was the hardest one though.
Yeah. I did not know about your dad saying that, but I mean, there's an element of shame heavily tied to honoring that body cue. So, yeah.
I'm really anti poop shame. I have worked with a number of people that poop shame is like one of the biggest things that needs to be overcome. Like, oh, I can't poop at my boyfriend's house, so you're just gonna hold it in all day. Like, what does that do? Like, and so it's like, okay, I want to poop. I want to be able to poop at my boyfriend's house. I want to be able to poop in a public.
This is such a real thing. Ours is farting. They're like, I'm very like, no, it's a normal body function. Yeah, just getting so disconnected from
Yeah, very
bodies
much.
making smells and having normal processes. Yeah,
Or feelings,
absolutely.
but that's another. I would say that would be my third
Well,
answer. Feelings.
and I love that you talk, it's kind of in the same realm of feelings are also very, don't feel these, don't acknowledge these, just
Don't be
pretend.
sensitive.
Yeah,
Cause
pretend those
trouble.
aren't there. Absolutely. So I'd love for you to share, when we're thinking, obviously the fear and the danger of listening to our cues is often public frustration or shame, especially when we're children, frustration from our parents, authorities that are frustrated with us not staying in line. So I'd love for you to share a time when listening to your body directly put you in the line of contradicting like an expectation from someone or an expert or somebody in authority. Because that's the hardest. I think that's a big, big moment. And how doing that changed you.
Yeah. Yeah, for those of you, I have to disclose that we did go over these questions ahead of time because if you nail me with that question, I would have to like sit here and like, I've already sat here and like thought through and felt through this answer. So I have an answer ready. One of the pluses I think of having questions ready beforehand. But yeah, this question was like, I remember when I was going through the questions, this one really hit me hard because I labeled it like unresolved shame here because I haven't fully. It's still a big deal for me. I used to stutter when I was a kid. It's one of the ways that every once in a while it comes back out. So here,
Something new I just found
talking
out
about
about you too.
talking about childhood stuff brings back my little stutter. So yeah, my boss when I was 16, he grabbed my butt, and the Child Protective Services came out to my house. Yeah, I mean yeah, it was tough. And the message that I got was like, well, the verbal messages were like, don't cause trouble. But then the like under cue, like it was basically seemed like it was my fault. Like that's how the situation basically, I ended up telling the cops that nothing happened or the Child Protective Services. Yeah. And so what I like took into my body from that was like, I need to make sure that that never happens to me. And so I put on weight. I started wearing baggy clothes. And I think even more is like heartbreaking to me is that I really learned to like close my energy down because, being open and bubbly and smiley and happy is attractive. And so I kind of went into this more like closed, to like preserve, like don't attract attention, don't attract, which, yeah, it was, it was a big bummer to like not, and I know, there's a number of women that I work with that there is some kind of like
Yeah.
sexual abuse that is underlying their weight because it's safer to be less attractive. Not safe, but safer. And so I know that's a really real thing in a lot of our culture. And it's a little bit of my history and something I definitely had to work through to, yeah, come back into my body and
Yeah.
feel.
I just really appreciate you sharing that part because I know for a lot of women in general, 1 out of every 3 women is going to experience some form of sexual harassment, sexual assault. And it has a potential to really disconnect us from our bodies, to make it not safe. The feeling of not being safe in your body, this being something that is actually dangerous. And so much of your work, so much of the chapters, like reconnecting you back in to this is my vessel, this is for me, this is a connection that I have with myself versus what so many of us are trained when we're younger to what does the external want from me and how to stay safe in that environment. This makes me think so much, though, of what I've seen you do with your daughter, because talk about raising her differently. Got the incredible gift of being almost like I feel like I was like a mini godmother at Burning Man. I got to be her godmother for that, and totally different movement through the world, connection to her body. How have you changed that for her?
Yeah. And so I think, and I think this is also, for me, it ties into like also how can I prevent something like that happening again? And I can't for sure prevent it, but there are things that I can do around being aware. And so one of the biggest things when I was doing research around like how to help my daughter not be sexually abused was like that as we're like really young kids and we're told like on the playground or with a family member that we have to hug somebody or we have to play with somebody when our body says no, like when I don't want to hug that person or I don't want to play with that person. So from a really young age, I have like really helped her feel secure and confident. Like, yes, it's important to be kind. Like you can say no, thank you, to not be mean about it, but to also honor if her body says, I don't want to play with this person or I don't want to hug this person, that I'm instilling in her that cue in her body to listen so that she honors that no. So that then she's, yeah.
Yeah, and it made her so safe at the burn. Like, I just watched her. She knew who she wanted to be near. She knew who she did not want to be near. And it was so interesting watching adults want her approval, like wanting her to give them a hug and her being like, no, man, I'm not feeling it. And she would not be shamed into it. It was really, really beautiful. So I love that example of you've just taken so much of trauma in your past and through makes me think of, when we take that trauma and we find the pieces, you've unlocked the pieces and the growth that you're now like spreading out in both the world through your work and then through the lineage with your daughter. It's like, this is the heart of when we talk about human potential. It's how do we take, for many of us, the cards we've been dealt, sometimes the rough hands, and change those so that what we're leaving is a legacy of change rather than repeated trauma being passed on. Ugh, love it.
Yeah, this has become such a really, I mean, having my daughter definitely like started this journey, but she's almost 8 years old now. I think, yeah, we have such this ability, I think, especially as parents, this access to healing generational pain and trauma, of just, okay, like this is what happened, and without judgment and without blame or shame, but you're like, this is what happened. Okay, now how do I actually like process this and then choose what it's going to happen to the next generation? And I think, yeah, I think we're an extremely, I mean, for me, this is like one of the reasons I wrote this book is like, it's such an extremely exciting time of all of this huge boom of psychological awareness.
Yeah,
So, and I think it's just, we have so much more access to skills and tools than the previous generation. So I think we're very, very fortunate, and we get to do this work, become a much more whole
absolutely.
person and create kids
Absolutely.
that
They
are empowered.
get to have a different experience. Yeah. Segueing out of that, I would love to come here. We were talking about, body cues. I'd love to talk about emotions because I think emotions are definitely like another huge, huge cue. I love the way you talk about them as information, information that if we're staying aware of can actually help us maneuver and guide our life in important ways. And one of the things I was when you talked about befriending uncomfortable emotions. This is something like I geeked out hard on because I talk about it a lot with my women are just so disconnected from how to be with what would be considered more negative or uncomfortable emotions instead of numbing them. So, to get a little personal with you, what emotion did you personally spend the longest time trying to avoid?
We're jumping questions here, and I'm totally down.
I'm also keeping track of time.
Yeah, I know you were doing that on purpose. Yeah, sadness is, I would say, like Ayurvedically, I don't know, for those of you who study Ayurveda, I'm definitely like kapha imbalanced, and kapha imbalance is like sadness. And for me, it was a huge awareness when I like understood my dosha. And so I would say, like, when I think about myself through Ayurveda lens, like sadness is my weakness. Like that's where I go. I don't go to anger. I don't go to like sadness is my big one. And so that was the one that was the hardest for me to befriend. And I would say it's the one that like really triggered a lot of depression. And it really took another one of those, mental health crises where I was going through this like big breakup, and I could feel depression creeping in. And I was very lucky to be working with a psychologist at the time. And I remember that this session with him so vividly. And I remember just going in and being like, I can feel depression coming in. Like, what do I do? And he was like, it was so nonchalantly, just feel as long and hard as you can. And I was like, I didn't have the courage to do it in there with the session with him. For me, I was like, spent so much time like in my intellectual analyzing. But afterwards, I was in my car, literally after our session. And I just remember feeling this wave of like, it was definitely like, I would say grief would be like another like more intense form of sadness. And I just had this huge like wave of grief coming up, and I could feel myself start to like push it away, push it down. And I was like, okay, what if I just allow myself to feel this? And it was huge. I couldn't believe what a big, I think also because it was so dramatic, I felt such a dramatic shift. But I
Mhm.
went from feeling, these tendrils of depression I'd been feeling for probably a few weeks to feeling this like refreshed. Like it felt
Yeah.
like like I was under a waterfall or something. I just felt so refreshed. I was like, whoa, feeling can do that much.
Mhm.
So that was my sadness was my, still is. It still is. And I often don't catch sadness. I often have to kind of wait until I start to feel a little bit of depressed. That's kind of has become my body cue, and be like, there's some sadness I'm not feeling. All right, sadness, where are you?
Come here. Come
Okay, we
here.
need to go on a date.
Yeah,
What's
it is the
going on?
most paradoxical thing that to move through depression. I've found it too. And that is like the heart and soul of my work with my women is the like relearning how to feel and to move toward the uncomfortable emotions. And that if you go and you be with them for that 90-second wave that is so intense, you come out the other side and it's like that water has washed everything out and stirred everything up and cleared it out, versus are like holding the beach ball under and then wondering why we are like anxious and worried and depressed all the time because we're just like this. It's exhausting. Yeah. Yeah.
And disconnecting, exhausting and
Yeah.
disconnecting.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, I think you kind of already shared this, but I want you to go a little deeper. You said, I want to ask you, how has your relationship with the sadness, the anger, or the grief changed since learning to stay present with them? Where I think previously it was like, ooh, no, it's coming, make it go away. Like what you're asking your psychologist. Oh, no, it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest thing is it's just gotten a lot like easier and mellow. Like it's just become more of a dance than more of a it's like become shorter. I mean, of
Ugh.
course there can always be something, a huge event happens and there's going to be a lot of that emotion to process, and so it's still going to take a long time. But I would say like in day-to-day stuff, day-to-day emotions that arise, it's just a lot shorter and mellower and easier. It's yeah. I mean, they're still there. I mean, you know this.
Yes.
I know you know this because but they still arise. It's not like you can escape them. It's not like they're gone forever. It's a practice. It's a forever practice. But the practice gets to be, I think, instead of like this, it's just
Yes.
like
Yes. It's like, well, because you don't have it all behind the dam. So it's not like these big, like, for like, I used to, yeah, go down for like weeks at a time off of a trigger or off of, and now I loved you calling it a dance. I'd never thought of that. But yeah, you're like daily, you're just doing these steps and these movements with the emotions as they come in and as they go. Ugh, beautiful. Okay, let's dive into, yeah,
I want to say I love that
tell me.
I'm going to go off script also here.
Love it.
Because something that has really touched me since I've actually written this chapter that's been really powerful in the last year is a dance with my energy. So some days I feel super productive and super on, and some days I feel really tired. And sometimes it's connected to my cycle, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a Monday or sometimes it's just a random day. And so I started playing with this last year and have had so much incredible like confirmation where I will be like, okay, I'm feeling really down. So I don't have a lot of energy. Okay, so what are the couple things that I do actually really want to focus and get done today? And how much can I like clear off? And I'm going to trust that tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to have this like surge of energy. And it has happened over and over and over again that if I allow myself to like take it easy and not output and not try and push, and then it's true, I feel like I get 3 days worth of stuff done
Yes.
in the next energy day.
Because that's literally where like my intuitive work has led this last year as well. So we're gonna have to do another episode where we talk about this, because yes, living more rhythmically, more cyclically, where you have this trust of, and it just goes back to that body awareness. Like, my body is not something to be fought, to be punished, to be forced. This is where we are. I told you I took a nap right before this call because I was like, my body is asking for rest. I am going to go give it rest. And that is directly from you teaching me the like, what is my body asking? And in the beginning, it's so scary because it's like, but if I don't do all the things, will I be safe? Because we've learned productivity is like, and it's unlearning the productivity, getting off of the treadmill, and like, no, safety is a regulated nervous system, which you talk about so much in your chapters. I loved, there's just this like cyclical rhythm in each of your chapters of this like, come back to trusting your body.
I also think
Now,
energy comes from, or creativity or productivity also comes from a regulated nervous system.
yes, absolutely. Thinking of that, I want to segue into what often keeps us hijacked. And, on that cycle, I think a big piece of what keeps us in the productivity and the ignoring our rhythms is when we just have so many options at our hands in today's world to scroll, to snack, to drink, to do absolutely anything and everything but be with our feelings or our body. to call somebody up, to drive somewhere, to work, to exercise, all of it. So I would love to hear more from you about, I love that you framed these coping behaviors that we have as something that we don't need to shame. They're usually like, they can be that little flag of like, whoa, I'm really wanting to scroll. What is this telling about my body or me right now? So, what coping behavior for you taught you the most about yourself once you were able to stop judging it and approach it more curiously?
Well, I would definitely say food was my first really big one, in my 20s when I realized I had kind of like figured a lot about the actual food piece out, but then I realized I was still really struggling, and I realized the struggle was really related to me eating to ignore my emotions. And so that was like the really first big one in my 20s. Yeah, just yeah, eating for that, for the pleasure, just to, for the distraction, just for the not connected to my body, not connected to hunger, not connected to nourishment. Yeah, I could tell some embarrassing stories about candy bins and kid
Can't we
frosting.
all? Yeah. I I loved so much in the chapters that one of the things I loved the most is that you described like needing soothing. You used that word, and that many of us, because we didn't learn nervous system regulation in our childhood from a securely attached parents, it is natural to need soothing, to be looking for that thing to soothe. And you giving the tools in both of these chapters to really start intentionally choosing, what do I want to soothe with, from the mindset of how do I want to feel in like a couple hours? Will you talk about that?
Yeah. You're such a good interviewer, Britta. You're amazing. Yeah, so, most of us go into like, "Oh, I shouldn't be eating this," or "I shouldn't be doing this," like that we go into that trap of like judgment, and we think that that's where we're gonna stop doing it from, but then that makes it us feel worse, and then we wanna self-soothe even more. So I think normalizing the, "Okay, I'm" like, and you just painted it out really beautifully, but just normalizing, "Okay, I'm noticing that I need self-soothing," and now choosing, okay, I have these different, and some of us haven't thought about what our options to self-soothe are. So even just
Yeah.
like starting to like write out a list, what are my options? Candy's one, baked sweet potatoes one, a cup of tea is one, a walk, a snuggle. So even just noticing what your options are is huge. And then I just find maybe the most powerful question ever is just like just activating, thinking about your own future self and saying, how do I want to feel in 2 hours? And it just changes the question from like, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm a bad person if I do this. Oh, wait a minute. How do I want to feel 2 hours from now or tomorrow morning? And that can just make such a different choice option of like, okay, yeah, I do
Mhm.
want to self soothe right now, but I also don't want to feel bloated or hungover or whatever it is, or anxious or depressed from,
Scrolling.
disassociated from scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that question is so big for me with the scrolling, because it's like, I without a doubt know if I go scroll within an hour, everything's still gonna be there, and I'm gonna feel, like, more dysregulated. The dopamine hits just come so fast on those for me. I'm like, so I loved that reframe. How do I wanna feel in 2 hours? And I love the idea of writing down the things, yeah, or an hour, right? It doesn't have to, but
Or 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah.
If it
But
comes to scrolling, it's like,
thinking of the positive things, because that's the, like, what am I really wanting? Am I wanting connection? Am I wanting physical touch? Am I wanting to be out in nature? We get disconnected from those more natural cues. I'm going to go off script here too a little bit, because I think this ties into that beautiful section you have around parts.
mm,
This is that, like, healing that relationship with your internal parts, the parts that didn't receive what they needed in childhood, that are looking for you now to be that parent figure that's like, oh, hey, I watch you do this so much with your daughter a lot at the burn when she would be having emotional. It's like you tap her back into her body and then she's checking in, like, what am I needing? Right.
yeah. Yeah, I love the parts work. It's some of my favorite work. Yeah, I like immediately go to like visuals around being around a campfire or a round table and the different parts of us that yeah, getting in touch with and listening to can just be so healing, whatever part adapted to childhood or whatever part is just doesn't, I mean, just inside of us. Like yeah, getting curious and being open and giving attention. And it's so, yeah, actually like makes me emotional right now.
Yeah. I think that's that connection into how so much of your work, yes, it's focused on like the body, the feelings. That's one of the things I love about this book is the how do we heal that trauma from the past? So much of it is rooted in how we connect with our body right now.
I have to do a small little plug here on this note
Yeah.
because one of the biggest, most common compliments I get is on my parenting. For me, Janet Lansbury has been like such a massive influence. She has a book. I haven't read it. It's called No Bad Kids. And I believe somewhere in the book, or maybe it's a subtitle of the book, or maybe it's just one of her great quotes that I have borrowed and use relentlessly, is kids aren't giving us a hard time. They're having a hard time when they're misbehaving. And I feel like if we can even apply that to ourselves as well, like when the angry inner teen is like acting up and being like, okay, okay, there's a part of me that really needs some help and needs some regulation, needs some attention. Like, I'm not a bad person. I just need some help. I need help.
Yeah. Because so
Yeah.
much, this is where we start healing the internalized shame. I'm feeling this way. I must be a bad person. I love that. I'm just having a hard time. And that's why I loved the soothing. I was like, oh, I love acknowledging like I am a human and I require soothing. In the world that we are in, it is for me personally, I find it to be very overstimulating. And I often do need the like reminder, oh, yeah, I probably just need some soothing. How can I support myself in that way? Another section that you talked about that I want to hear more around is related to expectations, boundaries, and relationships. And you talk about specifically letting go of expectations of other people. Really like I feel like that's like being with what is, being with reality, and yet also making requests without attachment. So can you share? I think that's like a pretty radical idea in today's world. I feel like so much of this is rooted in nonviolent communication, and how we move through the world being able to get our needs met, accepting that we all have needs and we need them met, but also meeting people where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, I probably wrote this in the book, letting go of expectations, but if I were to edit it, I would say like being aware of expectations is like really, to me, the most powerful doorway in is like noticing, oh, I have this expectation that the one in the book I use is about the toilet seat. The older story that actually this originates from was the apple stems. My husband used to live with apple stems everywhere, and the story in my head was like, "What? He thinks I'm his maid? Like I'm just here to clean up his apple stems?" And I would get so mad, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, what if I like switch the story of this of like that because the subtext is like, he shouldn't leave his apple stems. He should throw away his apple stems, which is the unconscious expectation. And instead, like change the story and instead of saying like he's bad or wrong for doing it. So letting go of like, he's a human, he can leave the apple stems. I don't have to pick them up. That's also an option.
Yes.
I don't have to pick them up just because he's putting them down. And then come from like, to me, a lot of it really has to do with like doing that inner work, that self-coaching of like
Mhm.
noticing the unconscious expectation, like having the conversation inside of myself, and then coming with like a clear request of like,
Yes.
hey, I would really appreciate it if you would throw your apple stems away. Will you please throw them away? Instead of, and it brings such a different vibe. We've
Yep.
been really working on our relationship the last year, and it has been so powerful. And we will often like start out in this like fight, and there's the blame, and there's the you're doing this and you're doing that. But then at some point we get to the point, okay, so what do you actually want? What's your request? And that's like how we come to like
Yes.
the most, I mean, not that I don't know if the first part is unavoidable, or maybe if we get evolved enough, we won't go there. But then at least bringing the second part of the fight coming and being like, okay, I hear you. You're upset. You think I did this, you da da da. okay, now what is your request? And it just like changes the whole vibe of the conversation. And I've
Yeah.
been so blown away with what his requests are. We just did this a couple months ago, and his request was like, I would really like you to spend more time on self-care for yourself. I was like, that sounds amazing. Okay, I can do that. That's your request. Okay. Some of our requests have really surprised each other, and so just
Yeah.
opening up that, like, it just changes the whole energy in the relationship or in the dynamic. And so it gets a little bit a lot, I think, a lot trickier with kids, but she has totally picked up, like, I'll tell her she has to do something and she'll be like, Mom, do I really have to? And it's like that cue of like, have to? And she knows that it's like, there's very little that she actually has to do unless it has to do with health or safety. I'm like, no, actually, you don't have to, but I would really love your help and I would really appreciate if you would set the table. And then it frees up that like authoritative, like
Yep.
power dynamic between her and I. And I feel, not always does she rise to the occasion, but for one, we don't have the horrible fight about it because for sure it's easier for me to just do it than drill her for it. And what I really notice is that, like, when I relieve that tension in her body, then she's able to, like, actually be like, "Can I? Do I?" Because they all wanna help us. They all want to do,
Yeah.
Like, and then she gets to check in and be like, "Okay." And I feel like more often she does
Yep.
what I'm asking her.
Yes. This is the repair in the relationship. I have noticed this too with my kids we've been working. I think you were the one that told me about the nonviolent communication book. I swear it was you.
So good.
Yeah. It's so good.
So good.
It's just, nobody has taught us how to speak from this framework of explaining how we're feeling and what we're needing and then making the request. And as I've started doing that with more with my kids, I've noticed how much I can be really bossy and just be like, I need you to do this and I need you to do it now. And that immediately creates that friction versus the softening into explaining, here's what's going on in my life right now. Here's how I'm feeling. This is what I need. Would you be willing to help me? It takes more time, but dang, are the dividends in the relationship huge.
But it takes more time up front, but in the back.
I know. Exactly. It's the short-term cost for the long-term payoff of your relationship just being so much more quality because people are fulfilling requests from a space of genuine like wanting to do it rather than feeling shamed into it or forced into it.
But I mean, I even think the short term, like, instead of going to that battle of like, come on, you have to, like even in that, if you just take
Yeah.
a minute to like get down to their level,
Lay it out.
share, most of the time they're like, oh yeah, okay, Mom, I can help you out. Like, it's like, instead of battling, I mean, I don't know how many battles I've done. I'm definitely not perfect. I'll just go into battle mode and be like, wait a minute, battle mode doesn't work. Drop down.
Yes. Yes. No, I've seen it. I've seen it massively with my kids. I've seen it too how now they've started doing it to me where they would previously be like, Mom, can I have this? And now they'll be like, hey, Mom, they'll give me some of that like backstory, let me into their world and they'll be like, I'm feeling this way. Would you be open to this? And it's amazing how much I feel my own, like, now that I know what you need, yes. But when you first come to me and are just like, I need this, I'm so caught up in my own world and my needs that it feels like I don't have time for that. It's just, it's magic. So I loved you sharing that piece of really catching our minds, watching when we are just that relationship. You talked about relationship throughout all of your chapters, and I loved you really threading that. I don't think I'd thought about relationship. I always think about relationship with like other people, but like the relationship with your body, the relationship with your feelings, the relationship with your parts, the relationship with others. Yeah. So I want to kind of bring us to the close. I knew this hour was just gonna like beautifully
Good thing we did more
fly.
than a half hour.
I know when we were first figuring out, you were like, maybe 30 minutes. I was like, no, 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 no. We're definitely gonna want an hour of this. So I'd love to kind of bring us to like closing integration, like you getting to speak directly to listeners to this episode. If someone is reading chapter 0 and recognizes themselves in your story, which I don't know how they couldn't, like there's just so many pieces, what do you want them to know about starting where they are right now?
Makes me think of one of the stories that we missed. Maybe I'll try to see if I can tie it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one of the most important things, because it's so easy to want to be at a different place than we are. I think it's just a normal human thing to have that desire to be farther ahead or, have a different story or whatever it is, or different struggle. And so I think the best thing, the biggest impact you can make in just in that first second is just truly deeply accepting where you're at and just being like loving yourself exactly there, like with as much kindness and compassion. And like that is just one of the biggest healing balms that we can all give ourselves no matter where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that that's like where you want them to start. And I'm like, and if that feels impossible, go read these chapters. They will tell you what to do to get there. Like there's so many entry points to that through the work. Like I just felt like there were so many sections where it's like, just start. And I love that it was kind of like, just start where it feels. You talk one point about how like your yes is your body opening and your no is your body closing. So just taking a step where the body is saying, I'm open towards this kind of work right now.
Yeah. I would say, and this is actually going to perfectly line me up with a story I wanted to tell, that I notice a lot of my people that I start with that they don't have access to that yes and no.
Mm.
And I definitely was there in my 20s. There was one of the interview questions that had sparked a story around this summer that I had. I was working at a raw food detox center in upstate New York with a Zen monk. And I don't even know how I got this idea to do it, but it was one of the most powerful exercises I've ever done. Where for the entire summer, I just had this like mantra of like, if I am my own lover, what would I do? Like, what would I do for myself? Like, if I am kind, and for me at that time, part of it was like not overeating. If I was my own lover, would I stuff myself full of food? If I was my own lover, would I like push past tired or would I let myself take a nap in the afternoon? And so for me, I spent literally the whole summer with that question, that mantra. And I think that was one of the big doorways that opened me up to even feeling the yes or the no. Because when we're so disconnected, it's really hard to feel that yes or no. And so I think that there is like a progression of along the journey to get
Yeah.
to that like more clear yes or no. And then there's subtle layers of it. And
So many layers. I feel like I'm just discovering more and more depths each year of
what's one
like,
that you
oh,
what's one this year?
I mean, the biggest depth is coming out of hustle. Like we were talking about, of really just a deeper level of trusting life itself, that if, as much as my brain wants to say, you need to get these things done and they have to be done at this time, that it's like, I am not going to push my body to produce or to output in ways that don't feel aligned at the moment, and trusting I don't have to have all the plates spinning perfectly at the same time to be worthy of abundance and support. And that is a layer that has taken multiple years
A
of,
big one. That's a big
yeah.
thank you for sharing.
So, what does coming home to your body actually make possible that people don't expect?
Yeah, I would say I noticed that a lot of people struggle with self-doubt, indecisiveness, confusion. And so I would say one of the biggest gifts of coming home to your body wisdom is being able to like cut through all of that and having, in fact, I have to give you credit. I'm sure I give you credit in multiple places, but you're the one who actually took my own body expert phrase and turned it into body knowing, which I think is a lot more understandable or relatable. And so when we come home to our body wisdom and we have that body knowing, we know what that no feels like inside of us. We know when I don't want to play with somebody, I don't want to hug somebody, and you have that connection to your body, you can use it like every area in your life, whether it's in relationship with somebody else, whether it's food, whether it's a work decision, hustling, it's just, it becomes this internal system that is so unique and connected to you. That's like, sure, nothing, I mean, you can get a yes and go down a path and it's not what you expected. But like, so it's not like it's like you can tell the future.
I was gonna say it does not mean all of your
Yeah.
you cannot escape the human experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's still all kinds of twists and turns, but you have this like, you know, you have this incredibly rich internal, and along with the body knowing also comes the forgiveness and the compassion. It's that
It's a presence. It's like this presence with life. It absolutely does not mean you will not experience grief or loss or pain. Those are all part of the human condition. But you're able to experience those things with presence, with more like, oh, this is life. I'm here for it. Yeah.
And I would even say, I mean, I'm curious if there's any research being done about this, or there will be research done about this, but I really think that it also goes into the cells of our body. You know, when we're present in ourself, and maybe this would be like a nervous regulation piece, but like when we're actually present and connected into ourself, like it happens, like our digestion works better, our stress levels lower. Like there's just also all of these like physiological components. You know, I think our intuition is also louder and clearer. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's a much less fragmented, much more embodied.
Yeah. You saying that reminds me of one of my good friends, Quinn, was listening to a podcast. I'll have to ask her, but she literally had a woman talking about this where she said safety is a nutrient. What you were saying of how she said when our bodies are in fight or flight, we can't even take in the nutrients we're eating because our body won't even absorb them. It is so dysregulated, it can't. And so regulating the nervous system, which is what we're it's threaded throughout all of your work with the body knowing, coming into presence with it. That is that.
And
Everything
through our
works
whole book.
better. Yes.
And through
Yes.
so much about nervous regulation. Yeah. It was interesting because I actually, when Jeffrey Kripal sent me the forward, I was like, our book is all about the body. I was like, wow, yeah, I guess I'm actually right. But
It
it's,
totally
yeah,
is.
it was. And, you know, especially in the context of like, I went to a couple of Michael Murphy's lectures at Esalen, and, you know, so much of what they were talking about was like esoteric stuff, you know? And so it was interesting also knowing the background of like where he was coming from with that comment, to being like, oh yeah, it's about the body. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, without being present in our body, it's difficult.
Yeah. And I want to finish by saying like your chapters for me specifically, just in the most beautiful way, anchor in real tools, real ways. We got to kind of stay up top here in this one, but in your chapters, that's where those like details are, those actual practices. You jam packed both of yours in the best way. It doesn't feel jam packed, it just feels of so many actual, here's the tool, here's how you can use this. If you're coming away from this episode going, oh my God, I want this body knowing, how do I do it? Those chapters are where it is at. For sure. I've told all the women in my community, I'm like, these are required reading because I am more of a like big picture, a lot of like feeling, but you do the most beautiful job of just laying it out bit by bit in these digestible sections.
Thank
So it's
you. Thank you.
truly an incredible, incredible gift.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
actually had a couple people say that they're like, "Oh, actually, like, there really is takeaways, like, this book is really designed to be," which is, like, you know, exactly what I was going for. But yeah, the book is full of a lot of awesome, like, things that you can do just from reading the chapter.
Yeah. And they're like doable,
Yes. Doable, accessible, an
accessible.
accessible
Yes.
guide to personal growth. Yeah. Okay, so you timed us beautifully. So well done. Love your on the fly interviewing. You're amazing, Britta. Thank you so much for this. This was
Thank
incredible.
you for inviting me.
So I'm going to open up the chat. Nice. Request first demand. Nice. So I think Paula, let me see if I can do this.
Yeah, I
How?
was interested, it sounds like, in what is a request versus a demand. Like how to phrase it as a request versus a demand.
Yeah, Paula, if you're here, this is actually my 8th grade teacher, I believe, which was so cool that she got this book. I'm pretty sure this is her. Paula, if you're there, if you can be a little bit more specific on your question, I'd be happy to answer it, and I'll try to ad lib in the meantime. So I would say that a demand is very opposite of a request. So a demand, like I would say a demand is really useful if my daughter doesn't know how to swim and she's by the edge of the pool. I would say something like very demanding, like step back now, like very clear and authoritative. Like a demand is like, I mean, I guess I'm trying to think, is there like a soft way to say a demand or a connected way to say demand? To me, now, and I always think there's a lot of this that's arguable and, there's different ways to interpret it. But I would say demand is very much in the authoritative category. So it's like, I'm above you and you have to do what I say. Here are my demands, which I guess the subtext would then be like, if you want shelter and protection and food as a parent, or as an employer, like, then these are, or if you want to, stay with me, like a demand is something that has more of like a direct consequence or a direct threat. And that's what I would say would be the other side of a demand. And yeah, it has more to do with like a power dynamic, whereas like a request is truly that like, like, this is what I would like. I want to ask this of you and you don't have to give it to me. You really have the freedom. Like, I want to be free to let you know what I want. And you also, I fully accept that you don't give me what I'm asking for or give me what you want. And, my husband actually, he used to call it the blue eyes move. Whenever like we would, flights, we used to travel, we traveled out of suitcases for 6 years. And we always had all these like issues we had to deal with. And he was like, use the blue eyes move. He's like, and it's true. I would get almost everything I asked for. And really, I think it's exactly this tactic is like, okay, here's our situation. I'm not demanding that you refund me. I'm not demanding that you change anything. Here's my situation. I totally know that you don't have to actually like change
Do
it, but I'm
anything.
asking you, would you please change this? And people would like, he's like, how does everyone always say yes to you? And I do think it's exactly this formula because not only people that we're close to, but people, on the airline's phone, they feel that same energy where it's
Yep.
like, if someone comes in there like saying, I'm a customer, you have to do this. Nice. She's typing in here. You have to do this. Like people, like the natural response is like a protection, is like a pull back versus like, I don't have to do that for you. That my
Yes.
job is actually not that versus like, oh, you're a human right there. Yeah, actually, maybe I can do that for you. That difference is huge. So she's saying here, it was just a aha moment. Oh, nice. So it wasn't a question. At my age of 70, this is my 8th grade teacher.
I love
To
it.
request instead of demand. I am agreeing. I'm never too old to learn. Yes, Paula. We're in all of us. Yeah.
Just say, Chandra, I loved you defining. I'm so glad she put that in because we got the difference. Once you defined demand for me, I was like, oh, there's very little areas in my life actually that I need to be throwing around demands. Like it's not that necessary. And I'm learning too, there is like a weaning off period, where it feels so scary to not demand because you've used force to get what you want for so long. But as you start to like test out making requests, at least I've noticed it with my children, over time, we're all appreciating the lowered like stress from so many like high intensity demands coming from all sides. And now when demands happen, they kind of are a startle because it's like, whoa, that's not how we normally talk to each other. So it's like a retraining into a more, I just keep coming up with like that regulated nervous system space where it's, hey, we're all humans. We're all trying to get our needs met. Everybody's got needs. How can we work together to meet these?
I love that you just like shared that piece with, the process of tapering off demands. And I find that one of the most common goals that I work with my clients is like, I want to feel calm, I want to feel grounded, I want to feel spaciousness. And there's so many doors into feeling that way. And I think, requests, especially like in a home or especially in your intimate relationships, is one of the most beautiful gifts that you can give. Yeah, your relationships is to make requests as opposed to come in with like that hard, strong energy.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say too, I loved that in sharing this, you emphasized the self-empowerment that comes from that of you make the request, and then if that person ultimately it's like owning the level you wanna live at, and if you're with a person that is not interested in showing up for any of your requests or helping with any of your needs and just kinda wanna goes through life, you get to know then you have good information rather than continuing to stay in the fantasy of if I just keep demanding or expecting this from them, one day it'll change. So I think it's very thinking of it too from like my women and the work I do, it's so much more like, yeah, you just get to see if people are open to fulfilling the request, showing up for your needs as well. And if they're not, then that's good information. When we're talking about adult to adult relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, I think if we think about, it's interesting we're focusing on this piece, but this was a piece that a number of people told me was really touched them. So it's all good. It's all perfect. But also, if you can think about the gift that you give yourself, when you make a request and you're unattached to it, you're not stressed. You're not, it's, you give yourself that gift of like that, like conscious acceptance of the situation. And so you're giving your own body that gift, even if, it's even, yes, it gives the other person a gift, but it also very much gives yourself a gift. It's huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tracy made a comment. You want to read
Tracy's
it?
here. Tracy, I'm so glad. Thank you both for just the most wonderful work on the book and sharing your insights. Really appreciate your wisdom in creating a book. I've been transformed by Chandra and her work, and wisdom blessings. Oh, this is upping our consciousness for the collective. Yes, that's the goal.
This is the goal.
Oh, Tracy, thank you for being here. It really means a lot to me. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Yeah, this is like big deal and an amazing kickoff.
First of many.
The first of, technically, if there's chapter 0, actually means that there's 19 chapters. So we'll be back for a lot more. The next one is with Nakia on chapter 1. She is amazing. And then March 10th with Nakia. I'll send out a link there with the link to that call. I really hope that this book turns into a movement. Share it, recommend it to your friends, to people who you think would like it. Get them a copy.
It's so beautiful.
Get them a copy and tell people about it. And yeah, I mean, I think we're at a really special time in human consciousness. I love your comment, Tracy. It goes very much alignment. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you.
I will definitely tune in for Nakia's because her work around the minimum effective dose, that was blowing my mind while I was reading it. I was like, I think I need to change how I'm working out. I think I need to change how I'm treating my exercise. Yeah, totally different way to think about it.
Yeah, she has blown my mind. I work with her personally, and she's a good friend of mine. So we talk offline a lot about this topic, and it has really impacted me. And yeah, I'm really a lot. And then many people that I've just run into, even including my daughter's school principal, has said like, I'm walking more because of that chapter in the book. I think there's a lot of people walking because of her chapter, which I
literally was thinking today. I was like, I think I should be walking more. I love it.
Okay, more. See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you for being here and making it all the way to the end of our show. I hope you loved it, got something great and useful out of it. Please go ahead and wherever you're at, and share this episode. That would be great for us to support this, getting this book and this content into as many hearts, hands, and minds as possible. Leave us a review on Amazon. Leave us a review wherever you're at, whether this is YouTube or podcast. And to get directly onto our book's newsletter, go to handbookforhumanpotential.com and join us there and get notified. And thank you again for being here. And I hope you have a beautiful day.